Access to do it. So,
Okay.
good evening, wherever you're joining us from tonight. I'm Jeff Selingo. I'm going to be hosting this live Q&A with College Confidential. So thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to give a few minutes here for folks to get in the room. We are recording this webinar, so for whoever signed up, you will get a recording from College Confidential later this week. And again, thank you to College Confidential for hosting this special webinar tonight around how do we find our dream school? What does it mean to have a dream school? Of course, based on my book that will be coming out September 9th, Dream School, Finding the College That's Right for You. As we get people into the room here, I would love to know where you're joining us from tonight. So if in the chat, you want to tell us a city, if you have kids in high school, what year they might be in high school, just so we get a sense of who's in the room. So in the chat, just tell us where you're joining us from. Santa Rosa, California, Menlo Park, California, Miami, when junior in high school. Thank you. Chicago, Houston, Texas, Oakland, California, 10th grade, New York City. Always good to start early. Michigan, Maine. Great to have you all here. Ridgewood, New Jersey, rising senior. So very pertinent for those who will be starting their senior year of high school very soon. Silver Spring, Maryland, not far from where I am in Maryland. Cumming, Georgia, welcome. Arlington, Texas, rising junior, welcome. Connecticut, San Francisco, Katy, Texas, class of 26, Oregon. School counselor in Northern Virginia, welcome. Thank you for being here, all of you. Easton, Connecticut, Massachusetts. Thank you. My buddy John Forsland, I see, is joining us from Northville, Michigan, high school teacher. John is very active in a lot of communities I'm part of. So, John, thank you for joining us. Rising senior from Philly, great to have you here. Thank you so much. I know it's summer, and I know probably the last thing we all want to be thinking about is college and high school and the senior year. But I appreciate all of you joining us tonight. We have a lot of questions to get through. Many of you registered with questions. I was able to bunch those together in a group of six different topics. That's where we're going to start tonight, but we are going to leave plenty of time for your questions. So please put your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of Zoom. If you add your questions there, we'll try to get to as many as we can. But again, most of you had submitted questions in advance when you registered for this webinar, and we will start with those questions and those topics tonight. But again, as many of you know, we're doing this webinar as part of the run-up to my new book, Dream School, Finding the College That's Right for You. That book will be coming out in about a month, a little over a month. So really appreciate all of those who have ordered it already. I'm just going to show you a little bit of what I'm going to be offering tonight to those who order. So first of all, Dream School, Finding the College That's Right for You is a follow-up to Who Gets In and Why, A Year Inside College Admissions. A Year Inside College Admissions is already out. It's been out for a couple of years. But on September 9th, Dream School is coming to you. Now, the reason why I want you to pre-order this book is that it's critically important to me to have pre-orders. The publishers love it. It helps not only sell books to others, but it really helps people discover the book. Most books now are ordered online, and the algorithms work when people are looking at books, ordering books, and then that's how people find out. So if they order and they're looking at books about college, it helps in that way. But if you pre-order now, you're also going to get this guide that helps you put the book to work right now. You'll get it as a downloadable guide called Finding Your Dream School. I'm going to show you a couple pages about it in a minute. You'll also get access to an exclusive webinar that I'm going to be doing about finding a college where teaching matters. We're going to be doing that in a couple of weeks. That's only open to those who pre-order. We're going to have experts on how do you find great professors in college. Plus, we're also going to be giving away a lot of other goodies over the next couple of weeks. So if you pre-order now, you're going to get into that stream to get those goodies. So how do you do that? Easy. Go pre-order the book wherever you want. You can buy the audiobook, you can buy the Kindle ebook, You can buy the hardcover. As soon as you buy the book, go to jeffselingo.com, Dream School, and enter your information there. It's just a quick proof of purchase. And the first thing you're going to get is this guide. And it's 16 pages. It offers exercises for students at all ages, whether you're a sophomore, first year high school student, or sophomore in high school, but also juniors and seniors. It's multiple pages. There's exercises, conversation guides, other ways to put the book to work right for you now. I designed this guide. It's meant for people who pre-order the book and they say, "I really want the book now. Can't give it to you, unfortunately, now." So this guide helps you put the book to work right now. And I'll be sharing that link throughout the night, but the commercial is now over. So let's get started with tonight's webinar. And again, thank you for joining us from all over the country. So, as I said, we got hundreds of questions from you in advance. So, what I want to do probably for the next 20-25 minutes is go through those questions to help you, because I think many of the questions were similarly themed. And if we don't get to the question you want to ask, then please add it to the Q&A. If you have a question that's just burning right now in your mind and you want to put it in the Q&A, you could do that right now, Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So let me just give you a little preview of how I grouped all these questions that you sent in advance. Again, six buckets of questions. A lot of people asked about how do I understand the value of a particular program or the ROI of college in general. So kind of understanding program value and ROI, number one. How do I kind of deal with the parent-student dynamic at home and the pressure that I feel in my community and at my school around kind of finding that dream college? So number two, kind of the parent-student mindset and pressure. Number three, how do I really find that college fit? How do I know what is a good fit in college, even if I don't know my major or I'm kind of uncertain about my major? So that's number three, college fit, major uncertainty. How do I know what programs are available and the options that are available for students? So program availability, academic options, number four. Number five is just the admissions process and strategy. We have people, as you know, from all different points on the admission spectrum tonight. Some are sophomores, some are juniors, some are almost in the real throes of the process right now as seniors. So we're going to talk a little bit about the process and strategy. And then I got a lot of questions about what's happening in the last 6 months in higher education. How does this impact college admissions, changing landscape and policy? So those are the big 6 points we're going to cover probably in the first 20 minutes tonight. I'll try to move through those pretty quickly. Again, these were questions that you submitted in advance. Understanding program value and ROI, parent-student mindset and pressure, college fit and major, program availability and academic options, admissions process and strategy, changing landscape and policy. So we're going to go through those. Again, if I don't get to a question that you have, please add it to the Q&A at the bottom of the box. Use the chat if you have other thoughts that I'm mentioning and that you have other things to add to that, please do. So let's get started. So understanding program value and ROI. What is the best way to determine the ROI of a individual department and then the ROI of the school overall? So the first thing to do is if you're going to major in something specific, if you already know your major or within the school, either visit when you visit the school or ask the department or ask the dean's office at that school for outcome measures. How do they measure the outcome of their graduates? But more so, where are their graduates getting jobs? Where are their students getting internships? Ask them to provide that data for the last couple of years. If they can't provide that, might be a little bit of a red flag that they don't really know where their students are going. Now, most colleges at the institutional level, at the university-wide level, do something called a first destination survey. So a couple of months after graduation, they will send a survey to seniors asking them, what are you doing? Are you employed? Are you going to graduate school? Are you employed full time? Most of those surveys you'll see, 90 plus percent are doing something. They're either in graduate school or they have a job. I rarely have seen one of those surveys produce something under 90%. I find those surveys pretty useless, to be honest with you. First of all, because most of them say, oh, it's above 90%, and I don't think that's necessarily true of every school. But second, only about 30% of seniors at most colleges even fill those surveys out. So it's a pretty small measure of the graduating class, and most of the seniors. There's a little bit of a bias in these surveys because most of the seniors filling them out probably have a job or they're going to graduate school, and that's why they're responding to the survey. It also doesn't provide a lot of context. It doesn't provide a lot of context about major and differences between major. It doesn't provide a lot of context. Are they employed in their major? So this is why I think you need to dig deeper within the school, within the major. They may not have actual data, but they might be able to give you a little bit of color in terms of, okay, last year's graduating class in this major had 25 students. You could find that out on the college scorecard, or actually on the College Navigator. This is a U.S. Department of Education website. If you go on there and you search College Navigator, you search a college, there will be data on how many majors, how many graduates were in that major in a most recent year. Sometimes the year is 2 years ago, but it doesn't really change much from year to year. So you go to College Navigator, find out, okay, this major had 10, 15, 25 graduates last year. Go to the department chair, go to the dean, and say, okay, what have the graduates been doing the last couple of years? Or do you even have better data? Some institutions at the school level or at the department level will be able to provide you more data about their graduates, but you really want to know internships and jobs, graduate school. What are they doing? Where are they going? Where are they working? Now, why is it a red flag if they can't tell you? It often means that they're not really in touch with their students. That means faculty members haven't really gotten to know their students. They're not keeping in touch with their recent graduates in any way. Again, they may not know the detail about every single one of their graduates, but if they give you kind of a blank stare or they say, yeah, we really don't know that. We really don't track that. Nobody really kind of tells us that stuff, right? That's a red flag in my mind about how often professors in that department or how often that department really knows what their students doing. So that's determining ROI on the departmental level. Now, at the school level, and we got a couple of questions around this, around outcomes. The best data that you're going to get is from the college scorecard. It's another US government website. The best thing about all of these is if you Google US Department of Education college scorecard or just college scorecard, you will come upon it, and we'll put all these links in the chat later on. If you go there, you can look at outcomes by salary level for majors at individual colleges. Now, there's a couple of caveats on this. These are not all students. These are only students who have received federal aid. In some cases, it's all students who enrolled, not necessarily those students who graduated. And in other cases, it's only students who graduated. So it's a proxy. It's approximation, I should say, in terms of outcomes for that department. Also, very small departments are often not included. So, for example, in my new book, I talked to a father who used this website, College Scorecard. His daughter was going to major in math at this pretty small private college. Math wasn't a separate category in the college scorecard because it was too small, but it would be under computer science in this department, right? So it was under the computer science department, which again can be a little misleading because math majors might have slightly different outcomes than computer science majors, but it gives you an approximation for what the outcomes, salary outcomes, earnings outcomes of those graduates are, as well as their debt level. And the nice thing I like about the college scorecard is that you could compare different institutions. And so you could look up, math at Loyola University in Maryland and compare that to math at Skidmore in New York, compare that to Denison in Ohio, and you could see what the salary outcomes of those different institutions are. Now, one thing it doesn't tell you is it doesn't tell you are those people employed in their major, and it doesn't necessarily tell you where they're employed. Are they employed in the Midwest? Are they employed in big cities? Because obviously sometimes salary outcomes can differ, and you actually see that. So an example I give in my book is Fordham and Chapel Hill. Fordham outcomes are going to be higher on earnings because most of those students end up in New York City as opposed to North Carolina. But again, these kind of give you approximations for how this is going to be in terms of salary outcomes. Okay, so that's about ROI. We also got a question about increasing merit awards from colleges. What is the best way to increase merit awards from college? We're not going to focus too much on finances tonight, but one of the things that I offered from my last book is the buyers and sellers list. And you can get that on my website, jeffselingo.com. You download that list that shows you kind of the schools that are more generous with merit aid right out of the gate. So one way to increase the probability of merit aid, and let me just talk briefly about the differences between merit aid and need-based aid. Need-based aid is exactly what it says. It's based on your financial need. Most of us who went to college maybe in the 80s and 90s, this is largely the way aid was given out back then. You still fill out a form, the FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, the CSS profile at some colleges, and they send you an award letter. And many colleges, it is based on your financial need. Now, increasingly, especially as I describe in my book, the buyers, colleges that need to fill seats offer discounts. These could be public and private colleges. They offer discounts in the form of merit aid to students, and some colleges are generous right out of the gate. And so, again, this buyers and sellers list classifies these colleges. You can also do it yourself, going to something called the Common Data Set. And there you could see what is the percentage of aid given out in non-need-based aid, what is the percentage of aid given out in need-based aid. You go, just college, Common Data Set, Duke University, Common Data Set, Syracuse University, Common Data Set, Ohio State. You can look up the Common Data Set for each of these universities. Almost every university puts it on their website and goes back many years. Again, not every university, but most universities do. You could start to really dig deep in the financial section of that to see what kind of aid are they giving out? What is the average aid? How many students get that aid? And that could give you a sense of how you're going to get that aid kind of coming out of the gate. If you apply to more of those buyer schools, more likelihood you're going to get that merit aid right out of the gate. You won't necessarily need to increase it later on, but that's happening now, right? I did a story recently for New York Magazine, particularly around Syracuse University, which after May 1st, which is the usual deadline for submitting a deposit for a college, Syracuse University was short. And so they started to offer merit aid to students who may have committed elsewhere. So I think you're going to see a lot more of this in the future, where colleges, particularly in late April, early May, are going to be going out with more offers of merit aid. Now, if you look like you're going to enroll after you get accepted, less likely to get additional merit aid, right? They want to use merit aid as a tool, as a coupon to get you to enroll. So the more you show interest but play a little bit hard to get, the more likely you are, especially if you're kind of in that sweet spot of academics that they want, the more likely you are to get merit aid. Okay, so that's ROI and kind of understanding program value. Parent-student mindset and pressure. Guidance for parents on the best way to support the college search. Number one, this is not your college search, and remember that. You're not going through you're going through the college search with your kids and your child. You're not going through your own college search. And I see so often that parents, kind of want to relive. Maybe they had regrets, or maybe they loved their college so much they really want their kid to go there. Maybe they went to a small liberal arts college and they thought it was the best thing ever, and they want their kid to go to that type of place, even though their kid really wants to go to a big public university. So you're really, you're offering all the advice, you're offering guardrails for your son or daughter, but you're not. This is not their search. I'm sorry, this is not your search, it's their search. And so set up those guardrails, be supportive, but it's not your search. It's not your way of kind of rethinking those regrets that you might have had. What other ways to support it? I always think early on, especially I noticed in the comments earlier tonight that many of you might be sophomores or juniors. Remember this, there's a certain sequencing to this search. We're not diving right into it if your son or daughter is a sophomore, a rising sophomore, or a rising junior. Now, if you're a rising senior tonight, a little bit different, but start to just ask them questions about what they want. What do they want in a college? What do they enjoy most about high school? Again, if you get this guide that I'm giving away as part of the pre-order to the book, there's a set of questions in there that you can ask them about what do they like about high school and what do they think they might like in a college. Do they like a big college, a small college? Do they want rural or city? One of the things that I highly encourage, especially for sophomores and juniors, is look within 50, 60, 70 miles of your home. Don't worry about the names of these schools yet, but go and take a visit to some of them. What is a big state university? So I live in suburban Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. And within an hour or two, I could get to a big state university at the University of Maryland College Park. I could get to an urban university, whether that's Georgetown or GW or even a little bit of American, to show them what it is like to be in a city. GW, George Washington is a very good example of that. I could go a couple hours north and I could be at Franklin and Marshall in Lancaster, or Dickinson and in Carlisle, and show them what a small liberal arts college in a more rural or small town is like. And so they get a sense of what these different types of colleges are like. They may not want to go to any of those name-wise, but they start to get a sense of what size means and what location means, what a liberal arts college looks like in compares to a big state university. And you start to get a sense of not necessarily what they want. I find teenagers often have a hard time explaining what they want, rather they sometimes explain what they don't want by visiting those. Then once you get a sense of that, once you get a sense of what they like and dislike in both college and in high school, you could then start to put together your list based on that. So the best way you can support your college search is to start out a little bit slowly. Sequence this. This is a marathon. It's not a race. It's not a sprint to the finish. And the earlier you start, appropriately, earlier you start, the more time you have to really understand what your kid really wants out of the college search and the better way you can support it. And then finally, as we get into senior year, there are two things I think particularly for those rising senior parents on tonight's webinar that I want you to remember. One, don't let it consume senior year. This is the last year of high school, the last year of your kids are going to be able to spend time with their friends. The academics of senior year are still important for college. Don't let it consume every waking moment. Great advice that comes from my friend Rick Clark at Georgia Tech. He always reminds people, one night a week, especially in those early season of admissions, as you get to deadlines and as you get to making choices, you're going to have to obviously talk about it more than one night a week, but reserve one night a week to really talk about college. And then the rest of the time, have a little breathing room to talk about what else is going on. So piece of advice number one for rising seniors. Second piece of advice is allow for course corrections. You're going to go into the senior year thinking this is exactly how it's going to go. I'm going to apply to these 10 schools. I'm going to get into these, 8 of these 10 schools. I'm going to really want to go there. I'm going to visit at this point. Things will happen. Things are going to happen. You may not get the grades you expect. You may not get in where you expect. You may say, well, I'm applying early decision, early action, and I'm going to get in early. You allow room for course corrections through the year. The search is not over just because you're entering senior year. It's still ongoing. You might change your mind after you go to tour some campuses. So allow for that course correction through senior year. Okay, so number three, college fit and uncertainty. Uncertainty. After a while, a question that came in is after a while, colleges all blend together. What are the best ways to tell them apart? A lot of this comes down to type of universities. So there are differences between public and private colleges and universities. There are differences between small liberal arts colleges and big public flagship universities. There are even differences between regional public universities. Regional public universities are things like, Eastern Washington or Western Washington or, Western Michigan or Central Michigan. Usually they have a compass in their name, or in North Carolina, the University of North Carolina at Charlotte or Wilmington, more regional publics rather than the big public flagship university. How are these universities different? So at small liberal arts colleges, let's start with them. Small, right? They're a couple thousand students in many cases, mostly focused on undergraduate education. So teachers there, the professors there are mostly focused on teaching, less on research, as opposed to a big public university where they have graduate programs. Professors are going to be much more focused usually on the graduate students. Graduate students are going to be much more integrated into the undergraduate experience as teaching assistants often. So you may have a lot more access to the graduate students sometimes than the professor. And that's one thing that you want to think about. How big are your programs? I wrote a piece earlier this week in my newsletter that at small private colleges, at medium-sized private colleges, more than 50% of students major in 10 majors. More than 50% of all the students are just in 10 majors, even though they might have hundreds of majors. So you're probably going to colleges and they're probably advertising. We have 100 majors. We have 150 majors. The reality is that except at big public flagship universities, which have, a dozen schools or 16 schools within them and hundreds of majors throughout the institution, their students tend to spread out among those schools. You have engineering and arts and sciences, and you have architecture in some cases, education. They tend to be more spread out. But at smaller schools, they are clustering within majors. And why is that important? Because that may determine the size of your major. If you're at a small school and you're not in a popular major, what does that mean? Can you get classes to graduate on time? Are they going to keep the major, right? We saw in Indiana recently, they are reducing the number of low enrollment majors. Just because you're in a low enrollment major doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It could be an incredibly popular major. For example, musical theater at many colleges are small majors and incredibly popular, and they're small because they're incredibly expensive to run. So that doesn't mean they're going to do away with them necessarily, but in other cases, small majors they might do away with. So it's a question to ask if you're in a small major. I'm also asked here about how to define a dream school, and I think this is important. It's really the thesis of the new book is really thinking about why is it a dream for you? What are you looking for in that college? Remember how I talked earlier about trying to figure out what do you like about high school? What do you like about different colleges? Your dream school is not somebody else's dream school. It's about where are you going to thrive? Everybody might in your high school might want to go to the big public university because they want to be there for football weekends and things like that. That might not just be your thing, and that's okay. That it doesn't mean that other school has to be your dream school because it's everybody else's. Really and this is why I really encourage families to sit down and discuss, what are the likes and dislikes about high school? Do you like small classes? Do you like the size of your high school, or do you want to go to a bigger place? The more you have discussions about that, the more you start to define what makes for your dream school. Program availability and academic options. So asked a lot about how do we know if the program that we want is available or is going to be available? So I just talked a little bit about the size of major, incredibly important to really look at how big is that major. I talked way in the beginning of this webcast about something called the College Navigator on the U.S. Department of Education that lists how many graduates how many degrees were awarded in a particular major at that university. That's a proxy for how big that major is. Multiply it by four, and that's probably the size of that major. You can also ask, well, how big is I'm going to major in English or I'm majoring in journalism? How big is that? How big is that major? And then compare it across multiple schools that you're looking at to determine is that something that they're invested in. How much are they invested in this program compared to another college that I might be looking at? The other thing about the more popular majors is especially at these bigger colleges, they might be capacity controlled. What does that mean? That means they only have so many seats. This is very true of business, very true of engineering at many schools, very true of computer science, where they might just have a limitation on the number of seats, and they will ask you to apply to that major. You have to apply directly to that major. And if you don't get into it, that means they might offer you admission to the university as a whole, and then you need to ask, can I transfer in there? Because more often than not, you can't. Sophomore year, if you do well in another major, you can't necessarily transfer in there. So asking them, what are the requirements to get accepted into this major? Do I have to declare it coming in the door? Not true at all universities, but true at many universities. Okay, so we've gone through four. I want to go through two more in the next couple of minutes, and then we'll get to your questions in the Q&A. I'll also have a chance to look at the comments that you've put in as well. Admissions process in strategy. How can you really tell if a college admissions office really takes a holistic view of a student? So, the more selective the college, the less automatic they are going to be. So, this idea of holistic admissions, which means that not one factor gets you in. Holistic admissions means that they're going to look at the entirety of your application. Most important is going to be the transcript, the high school transcript, what courses you took, and what courses you took, and the grades that you got in those courses. Even at the most selective, even at less selective colleges and universities, the transcript matters the most. That is something that you've done over 4 years of high school, or sometimes 3 years, because some colleges don't really consider the freshman year very much of high school, but that is something that you've done over the entirety of your high school career rather than a test, a score on the ACT or the SAT, which might have just been a couple of hours. So they're really going to look at that transcript. What are the courses you took? Did you challenge yourself with those courses? And what are the grades that you got? They basically want grades that are pretty consistent. If you started out with low grades, they want to see some evidence that those grades are on the rise. They don't like grades that are all over the place unless there's a very, very good explanation for that. So they want consistency of those grades, and they want somebody, especially at the more selective places, who really maxed out on the what was available to them. Every high school is different. 25,000 high schools in the U.S. alone. So they want to look at what you were offered in your high school. Often the admissions officers who are reviewing your application have visited your high school. So important, by the way, if you're interested in going to that college, when they come to visit your high school, go to one of those sessions. You can learn a lot about the college, but you also get to talk to that admissions officer who a couple of months later may be the one reviewing your application. Not that they'll necessarily remember you, but they may, depending on the size of the school. And so they're going to know your school, or they're going to have what's called a high school profile. Every high school has it. If you haven't seen your high school profile, ask for it from your high school counselor. Most high schools also put it up on their website, so once in a while you can even download it. And that high school profile tells you everything the admissions officer wants to know about your high school. It tells them what courses are available. It tells them a little bit more about the size of the high school, often grade distribution in the high school. And then add to that, many schools, many colleges now are using something by the College Board called Landscape. which offers more data around the neighborhoods around high schools. So they get a sense, are you going to a high school that's well resourced? Are you going to a high school that's less resourced? What is the census tract around the high school and things like that? So they get a little bit more context for that high school in that. What is something often overlooked in the college search? This was a question that came in. And I think the biggest thing is balance, a balanced list. I often am told by parents who are entering this process, oh my God, my kid's never going to get in to college. Well, the fact of the matter is that the average acceptance rate among US colleges and universities is 65%, right? 65% of is the average acceptance rate of US colleges and universities. So most colleges accept most students. When we talk about the way we talk about college admissions as scarcity and most colleges are rejecting most students, we're really talking about a really small number of schools. About 200 colleges out of thousands in the US are known as selective colleges, which means they accept less than 50% of students. Most of them still accept 30 to 40% of students. And so the ultra selective colleges, universities that you hear about all the time, the big brand names that accept fewer than 10%, it's a very small number. And so, if you only have those colleges on your list, of course, you're going to get rejected from most of them. So, if you have a balanced list, so say you have 9 or 10 schools on your list, three are kind of a reach, three are target, three are kind of foundational. Many people used to call them safety schools, still do. Nothing's really safe anymore in terms of getting in, so they're more foundational in that way. Three schools in each of these buckets, another school for good measure. You end up liking at least a school in each of those buckets. You're really true to yourself that these are reach schools, these are target schools, these are foundational schools. Be very honest with yourself. Because again, where I see families getting in trouble is that they don't have a balanced list, or they say they have a balanced list, but they're not really being honest with themselves. Yeah, these are, target schools, but they're really reach schools. There's a lot more reach schools on their list. Those are the families I hear from, I talk to in the spring of their senior year when they don't have a lot of great choices. Or they have a balanced list, but they really don't like any of the schools that are kind of at that foundational level. And as a result, again, they're unhappy when it comes to the list spring of senior year. Okay, last section. I've gone a couple of minutes over here. I apologize, but these were the questions we got in advance. So, and I grouped them in these buckets. So hopefully these are of interest to most of you out there. And the question that I get a lot these days is the changing landscape and policy, right? So, what impact will the current political landscape have on higher education? I think what you're seeing mostly is at highly selective colleges that are in the news every day, the Columbias of the world, the Cornells of the world, the Penns of the world, that are having these agreements with the federal government. But you're also seeing right here in my backyard, George Mason University in Northern Virginia, where they're having a dispute with the president. So what I think you're going to see both these publics and privates that are kind of in the bullseye of the federal government is you're going to see a lot more worry about what's happening there. And I think you want to get a sense from students, especially this fall, as we get back into the academic year. When you go visit some of these campuses, if you're going to some of these campuses that have been in the news a lot, I think you want to get a sense from the student body is how much is this really impacting your day-to-day life here, right? Do you get a sense, especially when you talk to upperclassmen there, like, do you get a sense that, your professors are different, or is this all they're talking about and they're not really teaching? Are there student protests every day, or is everybody feel distracted by this? Um, I have a feeling that in some of these campuses, life is moving on as normal, and the distractions really among the attention on these issues, very important issues, by the way, are among the leadership at the university. It hasn't filtered down day to day. Professors are worried about it clearly, but they're not talking about it every day in class or in their office hours. Now, they may be, and that's something you want to know. And I think you want to be careful of going to those places where this is all consuming, because you're only there for 4 years. And if this is something that's going to consume them for a year or two, that really could affect your student experience. So that's something you really want to ask when they get back on campus this fall. And then the final question, and then we're going to go to live questions and your comments uh, in the chat. What is the most important thing for an international student applying to U.S. colleges? What is the impact of international students at U.S. colleges? So two sides of that same coin about an international student. So if you're an international student, it's all about the visa. If you can't get the visa, you're not coming. And so that's really critical, and that's what we're seeing right now. So that's the flip side of this. I've heard in the last couple of days, really elite universities calling people off the wait list. So we're here in July 30th, and they're calling people off the wait list that late, right? The wait list is somebody they did not accept back in the spring. They put them on a wait list. Usually by now they've closed their wait list. They said goodbye to all those people, and they said good luck wherever you're going. Most of those students have committed elsewhere anyway. They've had orientation, they've gotten their courses, and now they are calling them, emailing them, texting them, and saying, we have a spot off of our wait list. We have a spot in the freshman class starting in the fall at X university now. Do you want to come? Tell us in a couple of days. And that's a big decision for somebody to make who has already been, really kind of in the mode somewhere else. And so that is what I think, at least for this fall, is pretty common. I don't know what's going to happen next fall. I think colleges now, remember when this admissions process started last fall, we didn't know what would happen in the spring of 2025 in terms of international students. So as a result, that waitlist movement happened this year. It may not happen, especially at those very elite schools, next year. It will happen elsewhere, though, I think, because one of the other things that's going to be happening with the class of 2026 is we start to see a decline in the numbers of high school graduates. So 2025 was the largest high school graduating class for quite some time. We're now going to start to see decreases starting in 26, 27, 28, 29, become much smaller. So as a result, schools are really going to be in a competition for students, and I think you're going to see a lot more waitlist movement, especially at those less selective schools coming up. So with that, let me get to first of all, I want to just point out proof of purchase. If you ended up purchasing the book, thank you very much. I just want to get through some of the chat and also see what was in your Q&A tonight. Okay, so let's start with the Q&A. And then I'll try to get through as many of these chat questions as well, and please keep adding them. How can one evaluate a college's career services? They all sound good in theory. One way is to go see career services when you're on campus, if you can. Usually they're not on the tour. Sometimes they are if they want to show them off. Go to them and try to find out what their programming is like. The best career services have programming starting essentially day one of the first year of college. The best career services are integrated into orientation. They're integrated into the first year curriculum in some way, right? Introducing students to career services. They might be doing job shadowing. They might encourage job shadowing for first year students just to get a sense of what a job is like, and they might help you get that job shadow, maybe during winter break, your first year of college. They're going to be doing resume workshops and showing you how to use Handshake, which is kind of the LinkedIn for college students. So you want to know the best way, I think, to differentiate them is, do they wait for students to come to them, or do they go out and actively work with students in the different schools as well as the different departments? And that's another thing. You want to know, how is career services embedded in the schools or departments or majors? Because applying and searching for a job as a finance major or as an engineering major is very different than if you're in journalism or English. And so you want to know, well, what are the career services that they're offering to finance majors? For example, do they tell you that most financial firms are looking for interns 18 months, 24 months before they actually have to hire them, right? So are they kind of in your face trying to help you apply for those internships? So those are, again, something else you want to ask. How different is career services really for the whole university? Or do they have specific career advisors? Or what are they doing within the schools, within the majors? Okay, so continuing through the questions. If my rising senior is undecided regarding major and career, he's a 17-year-old boy who can't picture his future yet, by the way. Most people can't. It's okay. I have a couple of kids, they can't picture their future yet, and it's okay. And by the way, that future's changing a lot because of AI, so all okay. How do we focus in on schools since he likes all the schools he's seen so far, mostly small and medium, medium, large? In other words, how do we help him find a place that will offer lots of guidance and support and mentoring so he can find his area of study? So, a couple of suggestions here. You want flexibility and variety in terms of majors, right? So, you want to go to a place that's not known for a single thing, right? You want variety, so that you want a little bit of the arts, a little bit of the sciences, so that as he picks his major eventually, that he has that ability. You want to pick a place that has an exploratory program or an undecided program, right? Like a lot of schools now have very specific programs for students who are undecided to help them find that passion. I like places that have what are called meta majors. So you don't have to pick a specific major. So maybe I kind of am interested in business, but I don't know, do I want to be in marketing or finance or accounting? Well, you enter in as a meta major for business. Georgia State has these, I know, and you're then exposed to a wider variety of things rather than a very specific major. You want to look for a first year experience. A lot of colleges have first year experiences. FYE, they sometimes call them, that put all students in a first year experience that, again, help them meet mentors, help them meet other students, peer mentors, help them explore what they want. And so you're also looking for that. So those are some of the things that you might be looking for if they don't know what they want. What should I look for on a college's website? You want to look for, by the way, you really want to look for the common data set if you can find it. That gives you all the information about a college. You usually find that under institutional research. You want to look for the net price calculator. Very important. Net price calculator, you put in a bunch of numbers that could tell you what the net price of that college could be. Those are definitely two things that you want to look for. You want to look for outcomes. How much do they care about outcomes? Are they telling you what students are doing after college? You want to see how much information they have about the professors who might be teaching your students. So these are some of the things that I look for on a website. The other thing I always look for, sometimes it's not on the college website, it's on a separate website, the student newspaper. I love looking at the student newspaper because that is a place that really tells you what's really going on. Sometimes not on the college website, but definitely look for that. How seriously should we weigh a university's financial rating and outlook? I have a whole chapter, by the way, on this new book in the new book on how to assess the finances of a college or university. This person clearly has been doing their homework because they mentioned Forbes, Bain. Bain and Company has a financial forecast that I worked on. Forbes gives out grades. I would look at these over the course of a couple of different websites. So Forbes, Bain, if you can get access to Moody's or Fitch, which are the bond rating agencies, look at those. Look at them in kind of combination. And do they tell a consistent story? And is that consistent story positive or really negative? If it's really negative and it's consistent, you want to take a deeper dive on that place. And it's not because, and I make this point in the new book, it's not because the college is going to go out of business. Um, some colleges are going to go out of business. I'm not that worried about a lot of colleges going out of business. Some will merge, by the way. What I'm more worried about is that this college won't have the resources to invest in you as a student. They might cut majors. They might not be able to put all that money into career services. They might not be able to put money into student success and your ability to succeed and having good advisors and things like that. So that to me is really important. Is do they have that financial flexibility? Um, Another question. Have you seen any changes in higher ed data availability from the current administration's Department of Education? Not yet. I have fear that will come. So get the data while you can. It's still there. It's still good. So we don't know what's going to happen though in the future. What are routes to receiving merit aid from large public universities, especially flagship universities, as an out-of-stater? Pretty hard, by the way. especially at more popular out-of-state options. Now, some of them do, and some of them are very transparent about it. So, the University of Alabama, a number of the Southern flagships do this, where they tell you exactly what you need to qualify for some of their scholarships. They'll say, you need to have this SAT or this ACT score, or this SAT or ACT score, this GPA. That's what you're really looking for, those charts, those scholarship charts. Not every out-of-state flagship has them, but those are the ones where they're probably going to lean more into merit aid. But then you want to look at their common data set and how much are they giving away in non-need-based aid. Then you want to look at how many out-of-staters do they have. So those are two things to be looking at. Um, what about U.S. students who want to go to abroad, go to college abroad? Where can we get good advice? This is becoming more popular, by the way. More students going to Canada, more students going to the UK, more students going to Europe. I look at Reddit for a lot on that. I look at College Confidential for a lot on that. There's a lot of forums on both College Confidential, on Reddit, on Facebook for that. That's where I would start to look for people who have already experienced that. You really want to look for US students who have experienced that in recent years. It is becoming more popular, and in some cases, it may be less expensive or just as expensive as coming here, but it's definitely something to look into. Our student is interested in a less popular major. Given your comments on the viability of small or less popular majors, how do you recommend the student find out about the strength or future of a smaller department? Are there any other resources they could check out in addition to College Navigator? Is it acceptable that they email the department chair or admissions officer to inquire? Okay, here's one way. You really want to look at trends in that major. Has it always been small? So if it's always been small, maybe it's okay. How well is it known, right? Is it something that they talk about all the time, right? If they talk about a major all the time, they're unlikely to do away with it. What has the student newspaper or others been saying about the state of that college? Are they talking about cutting majors? Have they cut majors recently? If they cut majors recently and it stayed off the chopping block, chances are it might be safe for a little bit. So those are some of the things to look at. You'll never know. But talking to professors, getting a sense, by the way, of how many of are tenured in that department, less likely. It's harder for colleges to get rid of tenured professors. So if that department is heavily tenured, that's something to ask the department chair. What's the percentage of professors tenured in that department? Harder to get rid of those professors, and so thus they might keep that department as a resort, as a resort as a result. Sorry. Obviously talking too much tonight. Will you clarify why the graduating classes are starting to shrink? This means high school graduating classes starting in 2026. Demographics. Demographics are destiny for most colleges. It's really, most colleges are appealing to that 18-year-old. Fewer students were born, fewer kids were born during the Great Recession of 2008. Those are the students now coming through high school. And thus, it never really recovered after that. We're going to see a little bit of a recovery in the middle of next decade, and then we'll see another dip because, again, there weren't a lot of births during the COVID, during the pandemic. So that's why we're now starting to see that decline. Let's see here. I am trying my best. We have 8 minutes left. So let me try to. We have a lot of questions here on the percentage. Do you have a percentage on the small majors? Do you have percentage guidance for majors? If a major is under X percent, it might be too small of a major. Thinking about liberal arts and sciences schools, it's not necessarily a percentage. What you really want to see is the distribution. A college may have 150 majors. 10 of them might be really popular. The next 15 might be the next popular. So you want to see that distribution. Now, if it's an incredibly long tail, what do I mean by that? So, you know, 60% are in the top 10 majors, and then the other 40% pretty evenly spread over a lot of majors. That's a long tail. You're probably pretty okay to be at that. You're okay to be at the end of that tail. But if 60% are in 10 majors and then another 30% are in another 10 majors, Well, if you're in that other last 10% and they're spread across, multiple majors or the rest of the majors in the college, I would start to question that. So again, start to question that. Now, again, as I said earlier, that may be a really popular major or a really prestigious major, I should say. I'm going to use musical theater again because at many colleges, musical theater is a very small major, but it is incredibly popular, especially at art schools. Highly doubt they're going to do away with that. Other majors that are important, if they have a core curriculum, and everybody has to take a math course, everybody has to take some sort of English course or writing course, even if the writing department's small, even if the English department's small, even if the math department is small, but they are servicing essentially these majors through the core curriculum, highly unlikely they're going to do away with those majors. Could you comment on AI and admissions or schools using AI to read essays, all how also AI and how it's impacting major selection? AI, a lot of schools are experimenting with AI and admissions around essays. What they're largely using it for right now is to test out are there are there markers in the essays that detail student success later on? So I know a couple of schools doing experiments right now where they're taking old essays, essays that students submitted a couple of years ago. Those students were admitted, they enrolled, and now they're at the institution. They're looking at those grades of those students, and then they're matching it back to their essays, and they're trying to see large language models, large analysis. Is there something about their essays that would have predicted student success? That they're, not doing well in their engineering courses, or they're not doing well, or they're doing really well. Is there something that would have predicted that through their essays? So that's one thing that they're doing. And if so, if they find predictive models, they will then, I think, use them in the future when they're reading essays. So not yet. Now, what else are they using it for? They're using it to help understand transcripts. I mentioned earlier, 25,000 high schools, very different. It's very hard for most schools recalculate GPAs. It's really hard for them to understand differences in transcripts, and they're using it for transcripts. They're not using it to pick students yet, but who knows? That may come. AI and how it's impacting major selection, we don't know yet. I'm actually working on a pretty large piece about this right now. AI, I think, is going to impact every job. And so my advice is to try to learn, if you're an undergraduate or going to be an undergraduate, try to learn as much as you can. Places like Ohio State now has embedded AI in all their majors in some way. I'm actually going out there this fall to try to figure that out. Would love to know what they mean by that. Okay, we have 4 minutes left. Again, the more help you can help me by pre-ordering Dream School, and then wherever books are sold, and if you order it and fill out the proof of purchase at jeffselingo.com/dreamschool. I just put the link in the thing, and if you go to that link, by the way, you can see links to all the online retailers. It doesn't matter if you order the audiobook, which I just recorded. So if you're tired of my voice now, probably don't order the audiobook because you're going to hear me for many hours. Or order the Kindle, or order the hardcover. You go to that proof of purchase site, and you could proof of purchase, and you'll get the downloads. You also get access to all the other goodies we're giving away. Okay, 3 minutes. Let's try to order some. Let's try to answer some questions here. More questions. How important is major selection these days, especially in the humanities? Looking back personally, it didn't seem to matter much. May help alleviate pressure if kids know that's not a make or break decision. It is not. By the way, in some professional fields, it is, right? You want to be a nurse? Better to major in nursing. You want to be an accountant? Better to major in accounting. But you can major in a lot of different things. I'm going to bring up a very sad episode. This shooting that was in New York, the woman who was shot and unfortunately died. I was looking at her, just looking at her biography, and was an English major, right? Now working in finance on Wall Street. I often look at LinkedIn profiles of people, and always look back at where they went to school and what they majored in. Very useful exercise. Hey, I'm kind of interested in this field, or I'm kind of interested in this job. look back at their LinkedIn profiles and kind of see where they went to school and what they majored in. And it will show you that it's not always a straight line to that job. And so I think that's really important to remember. So it depends on what you major in. Again, if you want to be a nurse, nursing, if you want to be an accountant, accountant, but there's a lot of majors that lead to a lot of different jobs. Passion projects or research on a resume is it critical for a highly selective school? No. Some schools like research. It's just yet another activity, but not necessary, not required for a highly selective school. Well, 1 minute left. Thoughts on West Virginia's reorganization of their college, dropping so many majors? True in a lot of places. Indiana, by the way, a number of public colleges just dropped, in Indiana just dropped a couple hundred majors. By the way, I think we're going to see a lot more of this, which is unfortunate because some of these low enrollment majors are great majors. So I think it's really important. That's why I really talked about this tonight to find out as much as you can how committed to a major are they. And I hopefully gave out a lot of tips tonight. I think there was a lot of questions on this. I think I'm going to cover this in my next newsletter. As a result, I just covered it, by the way, in my newsletter last time in Next, where I talked about the distribution of majors. So something else you could subscribe to if you don't get my newsletter called Next. So my voice is starting to run out. Thank you so much for being here. If you signed up for tonight, you'll get a recording of this. We tried to get to as many questions as we could. Unfortunately, we didn't get to everything, but I hope I answered as many questions as I can. Thank you very much again. Would really appreciate if you could think about ordering Dream School. If you already ordered it, tell others about it. Give others that link to download this guide to help you. It's a free guide. I'm giving away a lot of free goodies. All I'm asking for is a order the book in advance. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the counselors out there listening tonight. They are the heroes in this. The independent counselors, the school counselors, thank you for joining me tonight. And to parents out there, enjoy the journey. This is your son, daughter's last year of college, or maybe the last year of high school, last couple of years of high school. Enjoy this journey. I think the biggest regret that I hear later on from parents and students is that they focused way too much on the college search. They ended up finding the place where they were going to thrive anyway, and they wish that they had relaxed a little bit more in high school. So thank you. I appreciate your time tonight. Again, some people are asking about the free guide. You have to fill out the pre-order form at jeffselingo.com/Dream School. We'll include that in the link when we send out the link to tonight's recording. So appreciate everybody being here tonight. Thank you and have a good night, everybody.